Hey folks, welcome back to DCS. In today's video we're going to be flying on the Contention Cold War server on the Era4 rotation, which was added just for the release of the MiG-29. So this was about a week and a half ago now. As you can see, we're loaded up with a bunch of ground ordnance on the Mirage F1. Now this is because Era4 basically was intended to be a sort of playground for the MiG-29, where I think it was meant to be a bit of a seal clubby kind of thing. But with the way Contention balanced it, in my opinion, it actually ended up being quite weak. So they limited it to R60Ms and R27s, and they made it cost 100 credits to spawn. And you didn't get those credits back if you landed, so the idea behind me flying the F1 is that after I expended my MiG-29 spawns, I had to recoup the credits, and this video is essentially going to be about how do you recoup credits quickly. Now, Era4 is no longer with us, it's rotated back to Era1, and I'm not even sure if it's coming back. But you can spend the credits on Contention on multiple other things, so this will still be relevant, even despite the Fulcrum not being in the picture. So down to R11, quite close, there is a FARP. And what we're going to do is roll in and drop some bombs on that FARP. There tends to be units that line the centre between the helipads. And the reason you want to destroy FARPs is that your team can then land friendly troops on them using helos and capture them for your team, and that helps to push the front line forwards, and it also gives your helos a place to spawn. And if they can spawn close to the front line, it takes them less time to push further forward, and helos can be used to deploy SAM assets and other such things that help benefit your team. Now this isn't a massive gain for us in terms of our credit point journey, especially when your aim is as bad as mine. I think they've slightly changed the kinematics for these bombs. The second one kind of landed where I wanted it to, but I might have forgotten to flick the fuse switch because that splash didn't look very impressive. When you kill regular ground units, you basically just get 1 point per target killed, and then when you land successfully, your points get doubled. So you'd probably get maybe 20 points for like a 20 to 30 minute sortie if you manage to kill, I don't know, 5 or 6 ground units, which is probably fairly typical. But the real moneymaker are the depots. So down to our low left, and quite often close to the enemy FARPs, there is a depot, and this is basically just like a storage area for like tanks, trucks, fuel, ammo, etc. And they're good because when you bomb them, everything is just really, really huddled together, so one bomb will kill a stupid amount of units. And then because they're so important for the way that the logistics work in the server, you don't just get 1 point per unit, you get like between 1 and 3 points per unit. Now the downside is that these points don't get doubled when you land successfully at the end of the sortie, but you get so many that it almost doesn't matter. So we must have just killed probably 20 to 30 units, and some of them are worth 3 points each, so you can theoretically get 100 credits per sortie, maybe even more, by just seeking out the supply depots. I was actually somewhat uncertain about whether I should make this video or not, because I don't want all of my supply depots to get stolen from me before I can kill them. I also wanted to show you the SNEBs on the F1, because I haven't really covered them properly before, and for whatever reason at the moment, they're actually insanely overpowered. I actually don't know if they're working correctly, or if there's a bug, or if they're broken or what, but these rockets are very, very small. They're basically designed for just taking out soft targets. The same sort of thing you'd use your cannon against, but with a bit of splash damage. But at the minute, for whatever reason, they actually have an insane amount of splash damage, and you can actually use them to kill tanks and stuff. Unfortunately, I didn't do it much in this sortie, but this is a different FARP, by the way, from the last one, so I'm just going to spam them up the centre area, and they actually wipe everything there more effectively than the bombs did on the previous run-through. But FARPs tend to have a sprinkling of units all around the edges of them, including like tanks and AA and all sorts of stuff like that, and the SNEBs at the minute can just nuke those things in like one pass without too much effort. So if you have anything that can carry SNEBs, then I'd actually recommend you give them a go, and because if they are broken, they'll probably get fixed soon, and then you'll have missed your chance, and that would be a little bit upsetting. So another way you can get points, you might have noticed in the EWR reports that there tends to be like C-130s and B-26 invaders quite often, and these aircraft are basically used as transport aircraft for the logistical system. I actually wonder whether when the C-130 module drops, then players will be expected to take this role rather than AI. Hopefully they give it to both teams, otherwise it'll just be a bit of a C-130 murder fest. but you'll get 5 points per transport shot down, which is obviously beneficial to you personally, but it's also beneficial for your team because those transports can be used to place EWR sites, carry supplies into your base, and then the logistics kind of offer your team a fixed amount of points per hour based on how many strongholds you own or how many air bases, how many FARPs. So it all ties in quite well, quite an impressive system. And if you learn how to abuse it, then you can actually rack up a lot of points really quickly, and then you can spend those points on calling transport aircraft in for yourself, which I primarily use to put EWR sites down so that I can actually see where the hell the enemy team are. But you can also use them to, like I said, bring supplies in so that your team's hourly earnings increase, and then that helps to supply helos with things that they can drop off in certain places. So the Kneeboard has some useful information in it, and I spotted an EWR site down here, but I wasn't sure whether it was friendly or not. So I flicked through the Kneeboard pages, and it turns out that this is a hostile one, so I'm going to run in with rockets. And this is actually quite a good example of how insane the splash damage is on the SNEBs at the moment. Because look, this first set that I fire, they completely miss, but then the EWR actually dies before the second set lands. So I probably missed by probably like 20 meters-ish. And these rockets are tiny. Like, I don't think the splash, I'd imagine, would probably be more akin to a hand grenade. But the splash on that, it was like what I'd expect from a 500-pound bomb. It's just silly. It's completely stupid. It's completely out of whack. So we've still got some rockets left. So we're going to run in to spam the rest of them off on this last FARP. And then fuel is slowly becoming a bit of a concern, because this sortie at this point is probably pushing 35 minutes. And because I had so much ordnance on, I didn't bring any external fuel tanks. Generally, I don't think that the F1 really needs external fuel, to be honest. But through this sortie and realising how good a money printer the F1 is, and the Phantom is just the same if you're flying for blue, it kind of made me not care too much about flying the Fulcrum anymore. Especially given that for this Era4 rotation, the F1 got given its Magic 2s and its 530Fs, and with the radar modelling being like relatively basic, it's actually easier to get Fox 1 kills with the F1 than it is with the MiG-29, because it's just so easy to break the MiG-29's lock if it's firing at you. And the R-27s saw quite a major overhaul in the last update, and they're just not very reliable anymore. They bleed a lot of speed off, they sort of flitter about to continually recorrect their intercept course, and it tends to just bleed their speed off a tremendous amount. And I've had maybe like 3 hits across, I've lost count of how many launches I've had, but beyond point blank range they're basically useless. Whereas with the F1, with the 530s, a lot of things don't even get an RWR warning for the F1's radar, so they don't even know that you're firing on them in the first place. But then the 530s they're quite fast, and I'd say that they're viable to about 10 miles, which is about 20 kilometres, and that's a range that the R27 can only dream of at the moment. I wouldn't tend to bother launching a 27 outside of 15 kilometres. So this Viggen was coming in at 40,000 feet. I am on absolute fumes at the moment, by the way, but we are within 20 miles of our airbase and we're at 30,000 feet, so I just plugged the burner to dome him before he can bomb the airbase that I'm trying to land at. Don't know why he didn't react, he mustn't know that I was there. But then we're going to just glide down to land, and that will wrap the sortie up. In case I didn't mention it at the start, we are flying using the Pimax Crystal Super today. I got the footage from the replay track, which is why you've still got the little EWR report things in the top right and everything, so it doesn't look very VR-ish in the UI, but it is a VR sortie. It was just recorded using the track replay. And we're also using a new microphone. So if you order a Pimax Super, any of the Super modules between now and the end of the year, then you can pick one of 4 free gifts, and one of the 4 free gifts is an Antlion Mod Mic USB 2. And I always said that the Pimax microphone, the built-in microphone that comes with the headsets, isn't really very good. So for them to include one that's worth about $100 for free, I think is actually quite good. You'll have to see what you think of the other free gifts, I suppose, and then you can pick for yourself. But for me, for recording purposes, having a decent microphone for the Pimax headset's quite a good thing. And the way that this one works is you can basically magnetically clip it to whatever you want. It comes with a 4-pack of adhesive strips, and then there's like 2 little magnetic stamps that you can adhesively stick to whatever you want, and then the microphone just clips to them, and you can rotate it through 360 degrees. It has like 4 lockable positions. it's quite good. I'll chuck an image on screen of what it looks like and how I've got it stuck to the Pimax. But anyway, not my cleanest landing ever in the F1. I think the F1 is one of the hardest things to land, honestly. And I know I shouldn't have had the air brakes out, by the way, before anyone mentions. I just forgot that I'd used them. I don't tend to use them, really. So when I do, I forget that I have. Yeah, big fail on me. But it's really hard to aero brake in the F1 just because of the angle and the positioning of the rear gear. Like, you really have to glide it in and perfectly nail that sort of angle of intercept with the runway, because if you donk it with any force whatsoever, that it forces the nose down. It's a very annoying thing to fly. Well, it's not. It's a beautiful aircraft to fly. It's just a very difficult one to fly well, and the landing especially is a struggle. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that, folks. If you have any tips for quickly raking in credit points of your own, then be sure to share them in the comments. Let me know what you think of the mic quality and the Pimax in this video. Be sure to use the links in the description if you want to help support the channel and you're interested in picking a Pimax up for yourself. Beyond that, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.